So welcome everyone. We have a short, but I think a really good workshop for you on best practice 22. And if you don't know what the best practices are, where have you been? Because we've been talking about them for quite some time. And they are the best practices for online teaching. And they are available through the City Hub. Oh, I'm so sorry, Dina. Why does it automatically make a Teams meeting?
Yeah, just so you know, I went there first. There were some people in the Teams room. Um, and I went back to the invite and then found the Zoom, but Teams was listed first.
Oh
So
my goodness, I am so sorry. That's very frustrating that it
just
does
so
that.
you know. There, I think some people in there. If one of your team members wanted to
Team
jump in
members,
and
can
yeah.
you go jump in the Teams room and send everybody here?
Yeah, same thing happened to me, Dina, but I now though have learned to scroll down
I need,
before because it happens like automatically when you put in a online, it automatically says Teams. But yeah. Oh, you can just remove it as the default.
I'll have to,
That's the
yeah,
deal.
Bronca, are you going to run over there? I
Well, we
think she
should
was
do an
going.
ice cream social virtually. Everybody pick up the same ice cream.
I
All right.
agree.
Okay, I'm gonna turn my video off. That looks gorgeous.
So all right, so this will be talking about watching the video that problems with things. And monitoring the chat for me. Hopefully Emily can hear me. All right, somebody can hopefully monitor the chat for me. I don't want to waste any more time. So I have Kenya Johnson with me today. You want to say hi, Kenya?
Yes. Hi, everyone. It's good to see everybody.
So Kenya and I collaborated on this short workshop and this infographic. Let me see if I can send the infographic to all of you in the chat. Okay. Uh-oh, I sent it only to Dina. Oh my goodness. Here we
She's special,
go.
so yeah, what can we do? That's what
I
it
haven't
is.
seen Dina in forever either. All right, so this is what we're going to talk about. We'll go down the infographic and just give a little bit of information about each section. And hopefully you can get some ideas for improving your diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in your courses. Not just online courses. I think that these ideas can be used for all types of course environments and places that you're teaching and even interacting with people. So the first one is focused on student well-being. And this is something that Kenya, it was particularly, how do I want to say this? You talk about it so well, how this is focused on student well-being. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Angela. And thanks for inviting me, Angela, to be a part of it. So this is my first time kind of really being in the space, so I appreciate it. I know the lens, and those of you who I work with more regularly, I know Dina hears me say this at nauseum, but I really think we have to understand when we're talking about diversity and we're talking about equity and inclusion and belonging, that we're really talking about a wellness situation, a well-being situation. And if we can begin to start looking at, instead of looking at it as a terminology or as this entity that we have to somehow go learn, if we're all in healthcare and if we can all appreciate that this is actually a part of a person's well-being, is their identity, who they understand themselves to be. And so I think when we're looking at our students, when you're thinking of your classroom and thinking of the assignments and how you're approaching them, really be thinking of, is this to the well-being of the student? Am I considering all the facets of the student? You're not going to be able to know all the things, but definitely think of it, if you can take it from the lens of how am I impacting their well-being, therefore creating inclusive learning, therefore being more responsible and intentional about, how I approach my learners, because this in fact is going to impact how their whole self is being in the space.
So one way to do that in your courses is through being a little bit more purposeful about the course content that you use and analyzing it with a new lens, I think, towards that student well-being. And one way to do that is to make sure that you are representing a variety of people, a variety of situations, a variety of types of people, so that it's not just one type of person that appears in your case studies, and you vary that. I have seen this done very well in the medical college. When I worked for the medical college my first year at Rush, I was always impressed with whoever was writing these case studies, that they really covered such a diverse person population and a lot of different lifestyles and cultures and languages. And so I think that that's one way to do it, is to look at the type of materials you are giving your students and looking through those lenses, diverse types of perspectives and experiences.
I wanted to just piggyback on, and to give another example of diverse. I just had a group of students, and they had to do a group project, and their audience was a group of foster parents. And so thinking about, I had that, therefore had to make them think about what's all the layers of, if I'm a parent, when I think of, parenting and roles, and then I'm thinking of children and age, and I'm thinking of all, like a teenager versus all of that kind of got encompassed. So also just thinking not always in terms of the different sex, race, gender, but also these experiences and how they intersect, and how, if I'm going to create a case study, could it, can I add a layer to that would allow the student to see this as a more, actual human and whole situation, as opposed to just this was a person, a female. You know what I mean? Just thinking about how all that intersects.
Or when you have your students write case studies, which is sometimes what people do in their courses, encourage them to look through different types of lenses and different types of life experiences, perspectives, and lifestyles, etc. Encourage them to do that, especially if they can pull from their own experiences, people that they know, right? And be able to use that material when they write their own case studies. So the next section is a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging statement. Now, who here is from the College of Nursing? I believe you have one of these in your syllabus. Is that true? Erica, you want to say something about that? Maybe she put it in the chat. So Kate said yes.
Yes. Yes. Go ahead.
He does as well. If you do not have a statement in your syllabus, you need to get one. You can ask somebody from the College of Nursing to look at theirs. I have one that you're welcome to have. You can email me and say, hey, can I see your DEIB statement? And I'm happy to share it with you. But starting off your course, letting students know your position on accepting them and their whole self, everything about them, that you accept it, you honor it. Did you have a question, Lori, or a statement?
But does the simple syllabus have statement already in there? I got to go and look specifically for it if there isn't.
No, I think each program has their own template that they use. But if faculty members want us to put a this type of statement as a section in simple syllabus, we can do that. Nursing has it.
I think we should.
But I don't know if all programs.
I agree with Lori.
I kind of think we should. It's just right. It's just an expectation of Rush, of our teaching. It's what we're supposed to be doing anyway. So I'd like it. I can put something in, but I'm Like I put a little AI thing extra to what you guys did, but I don't think it's any different. Like we need to put it out there. Thank you, Kenya,
Okay.
for supporting me.
That.
Well, I think we do, and I think we continue to do these types of spaces where faculty can feel comfortable putting those, meaning I can back that up. So like, you don't want to have this statement and then in fact, you don't do any of those things. So,
Right.
you know, yeah, yeah.
Right. It's that's a little awkward, right? You have the statement and then you're like, I don't know what to do. I'm freaked
Right.
out.
Right.
But you know, I think that is something that I think it should go in now, you know, because we've been talking about this for what, Kenya, a couple of years at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think program by program is implementing it. College of Health Science is such a big college and has a lot of different programs. And I think some programs, yes, it's already been there for a while, but other programs, and I don't know, I didn't review. I know we did a whole review of the syllabi though, you know, Dr. Royan when she was here, and I imagine, but I could be wrong, that this was one of the things that was really highlighted to make sure we are including in our syllabi. And I don't know others who are in health sciences, Dina, if you know, or anybody else.
I know that we have more than encouraged it to be in the programmatic handbooks, a part of each program's orientation, and we do have a College of Health Sciences wide diversity statement that we use in all of our admission supplements and is on the wall visually within the college. But I think that this would be worth looking into more to also help programs speak to how this does impact culture. Right. And how to implement the words within a statement, I think is going to be critical.
I just think it just plain belongs there because it's the culture of our college and our university. I'm actually looking at my syllabi because you know what? I didn't even notice that I didn't have it until we just started talking about it. So that's why I think it would be helpful. Okay, I'll zip it. Go on, carry on. I'll quit talking.
Thank you. So the next thing is getting personal with your students. And you might already do this if you have cohort-based programs where you really get to know those students because you have them in each class and they're together for a long time. But not all classes are like that. And sometimes you have these one-offs where you just have a group of students that you're not going to have again. Asking them questions that aren't too personal, but sort of dig into who they are and let that come out. And here are a couple of ways to do that. Like in your introductions in the first week of class, you can ask them, what's their favorite holiday tradition? This is so interesting because when people come from other countries or their ancestors, parents, grandparents come from other countries, it's super interesting to learn about the different traditions. Like I know just in city, we have people that do different things. Branka, for example, you know, she has a lot of Serbian traditions, and it's fascinating to hear about the different things they do at different parts of the year, holidays, and celebrating different saints and things. So your students will share that kind of stuff. And then you can follow up and ask them more questions. And then that connection kind of gets made between you and your student on a personal level. It's super awesome. A picture of their favorite place, that might get personal, it might not. You know, it might be something, you know, maybe a vacation they went on or something like that. A childhood memory. There are other types of questions to ask to sort of get to the deeper part of people. And so and honor that and celebrate that. Has anybody done anything similar to this that they would like to share?
I haven't, but I'm in Canvas now putting it in there. Right? Introduction.
Lori, I adore you. It's just, you're amazing.
I love having two screens. I'm really not multitasking, but I take the ideas and pop it in.
I love it. Like,
and we do in one of the Intro to Health Professions courses in the name of allowing the students to have that space, and as the facilitators also do that. So allow them to see us as people in humans. And what I find really important with this part, Angela, is that I think that when we're talking about identity, that we give students and faculty and staff the spaces to tell us how they want to be identified. So these types of exercises allow an individual to say, this is who I am, or this is what is important to me, versus someone making an assumption on that by how one looks or a checkbox on a list that may not equal who they are. And so I think it's imperative for creating safe spaces and for having multiple types of learners. I think this is one of the things that should be integrated in all of our interactions within academia.
Honestly, I did not give her this script in advance to tell her to talk about this, because it's literally perfect. Thank you so much. It was like a perfect addition to what I just said. And being comfortable with being yourself with your students is something that might be hard for some people, because sometimes people feel like I have to be distant, right? I can't create those. I can't be who I am with my students. That's a different identity. But when you do that, you create such a connection with your students. It's fabulous. You see who else is talking in the chat. How would you incorporate this with larger cohorts or in-person cohorts? Some students are uncomfortable sharing non-school information. That's where giving them choices, which I'm going to get to. Let me scroll up. Look, there it is, big and black. Choices. Giving them choices will allow them to feel comfortable. So if they don't want to answer that, like if you say, share this, here are some possible things that you can share. And make sure there's something on there that isn't so personal for those who don't want to, such as share a picture that is meaningful to you from your phone or whatever. And they could share a picture of their pet or somewhere they went on vacation. And that way it's not as personal as childhood memory or a family tradition or something like that.
Yeah, and you may still even, because, you know, Angela, thank you, Kate, for putting that in the chat, because Angela and I actually talked about that. And, you know, the thing you want to be constantly thinking about is, how am I allowing the student to feel empowered? How am I inviting the student into this space as opposed to just mandating or telling or demanding them, especially when you're starting off, because they're going to get a lot of demands, right? They've got to complete these, they're getting assessed. There's already plenty of demands. So how can we create some space where they have some power, they have some choice? Because I think that's, again, where you're allowing the student to feel invested. And it's not a class that's just, I'm constantly, you know, having these demands. And we've created, you know, a lot of students are not used to a culture like that, right? Because most educational situations, you're not being asked these kinds of questions. You've just been giving, you know, exams or assignments. And so that can feel uncomfortable for students, because it's like, why are you asking me this now? I've never had anybody ever do this before. And I think, you know, this is when it's important for you as a faculty, and this is, if you're needing support and development on this, you know, there's spaces for us to talk about it, but being able to help the student be able to, you know, to say to the student, you know, this is a space where again, with that statement we have, where we want to encourage, you know, all of you to be able to show up. At the same time, I totally recognize if you're not ready right now, if this just is not this space for, you know, being ready to do that, because you may have a student, I don't think it's going to be a majority, but absolutely. And even certain assignments that may involve them having to do a little bit more experiential or talking about their own personal, you know, I know in the nutrition classes, they have to like write their own nutrition journal and what they ate and, you know, analyze that. And some people that can be very like, whoa, I have some issues around that. And I don't know if I'm ready to disclose that. So just being able to understand that, work with the students, sit down and be able to think about how can we make this where they do have some power, where they do have some choices, but still keep the expectations there. But also giving people the power to say, I had something like this, that's just the intro, that's not necessarily tied to an assignment to
Yeah.
be able to pass if they need to.
Did somebody want to say something?
No, I was just going to say, I've been doing it for years, although I didn't say about the tradition, the holiday tradition, but I thought that was such a good idea.
Mhm.
And some people don't want to do it. You can do it or you don't do it.
Right.
It's like I don't even go into anything. I just invite them. And that's all I do. And it does develop rapport. So, and it's fun because then some of the students will realize some of them know each other from other things. And it's kind of fun to watch that connection being made, when they're able to talk a little bit about themselves. So
Yeah.
anyway, but I do
agree.
think it's important, just, it's important for me because I want to know who I'm, who's in my class. And because when I do meet them, then sometimes I'll actually have a little note set, this person's from here and they work there, or whatever.
Yeah. So the other thing on this that you see now is lived experiences. And if any of you have taken my OTCD course, I have said this in the class, that when you design content, make sure you give the students opportunities to talk about what they have seen, what they have lived through, what they have experienced, and having those options either in discussion face-to-face, in discussion online, in discussion virtual, like you and I are doing right now, having that time to share, but it's not necessarily forced. Like if they don't want to talk about it, they don't have to talk about it, but giving them an opportunity to do so, whether it's in papers, it's in case studies, it's in discussions, but giving them that time. And if you don't know how to do this, you don't know how to fit this in, that's where my team comes in. Just talk to one of my team members. Emily's here, Bronca's here. I'm not sure who else is here because I can't see, but any of the instructional designers will be happy to help you try to figure out how to infuse this in your content before you start in fall. And we already kind of talked about choices, giving students opportunities to do things differently. And I know this is hard to do. It's extremely difficult because you're like, but I have a research paper and that's the assignment, or I have a test and that's the assignment. But maybe it doesn't have to be. Maybe it doesn't have to be. It depends on your curriculum. It depends on your program. But if you have the opportunity to look at your assignments in your course and say, where can I give them choices? Opportunities to show me that they've learned in a way that makes them the most comfortable. Maybe they're horrible paper writers. Some people are. My husband is like, oh my gosh, if I had to write a paper, it would take me 5 days to do it. And I'm like, it would take me 5 minutes, right? But that's because we're two different brains, right? And how we represent things. So with choice, if you don't know how to do it, talk to an instructional designer. We all, or me, we all know how to do this and how to infuse this. Do you have any comments on either of these, Kenya?
No, you're spot on. I mean, I think really utilizing what Angela's saying, their team. And even if it's a situation, maybe in this term, you don't have a course that whatever requires this, but still utilizing the team. So you're kind of getting ahead of the game to hear the ideas of ways to approach these things so that it becomes a part of your own professional development. And not looking at it just kind of case to case, but this is kind of a part of how I want to also grow as an educator, is how do I take science, how do I take pathophysiology and do this? How do I take, pharmacology? How do I take these more clinical science classes and do this? Because one of the things I think is important is to stop thinking that this is only relegated to soft skills or to the spaces where you don't have as much strict objective information or whatever. You can take small parts of this and put it in physiology. The very first class, us just getting to know each other, again, we're just trying to create a welcoming space, which in fact can allow that clinical education experience to be even stronger. Because now I'm seeing beyond just this grade that I got or this objective data, I'm being remembered, and you're building a rapport now with the student. And so when they are having difficulties, we've gotten a little bit more of a rapport. And I just know the students They love the science teacher who can be more than the science teacher. You know what I mean? They can talk beyond that space because it makes them feel like they can connect to that more objective and more hard, that more challenging material better and more comfortable talking when they're having a problem with gaining that material.
So now that we're at the end of the session, does anyone here have any advice that they would like to share, or any experiences or any questions? Opening the floor to you.
I like these little short meetings. I think they're helpful. And they're kind of focusing on certain things, don't you?
I do.
Just a 30-minute thing. Let's get to the point and have a little something, and we can connect, talk about what works, what doesn't work in our classes.
Yep.
And because I get good ideas from everybody pretty much. And sometimes I always get something though from the classes.
Yeah, these 30-minute best practice workshops have been really popular with faculty, which it makes me extremely happy. I don't remember whose idea it was in City to do them. It doesn't really matter, but they've been really successful. And we're trying to get all of them up on our YouTube channel. It's just taking a little bit of time to do that, but we will get there, I promise. Dina, did you have a question or comment?
I do have a question. Can you both speak a little bit more on, as we're creating these spaces, how to broach some of the maybe noise or louder or even harder topics of identity? A few that currently are come to mind regarding some political unrest, that we're in a presidential election, that there are some wars that are happening around the world. As we broach some of these spaces, some of our students were certainly identifying in specific categories that potentially some of our other students have strong judgment, reaction, or feeling to. And I'd love to talk a little bit about, as facilitators, how we manage those places to remain safe and utilize our experiences to kind of navigate some of the harder identity components when it comes to that.
That's a great question. Did you have an answer off the top of your head, Kenya?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts, but if you have something, go ahead. Did you have
Go
something?
ahead. I'll go off of you.
No, I think this is really important because that's the reality of what's happening. And I think that the other reality is what one person may seem is harder, another person may not think is. And so we may minimize without intention of minimizing something. So what I have found, especially with this generation of learners, the more transparent and honest you can be, the better. Meaning the more that you can recognize and have, especially those who are meeting in person, but even online, you can put this, you can have some discussion board around this, just making the students, creating some agreements with each other. I know that's one of the things that I always start off with. Because I do the seed, curriculum with the students, and we go into some very, very hard conversations. If you know that you're going to you're creating a space that some of this may come up, or maybe you don't know it's going to come up, but it does. I create these agreements to say it's okay for us to get uncomfortable. We're in a setting right now, and that's the class that I teach. So you kind of have to ascertain, the context of where you're at, but being willing to say we're not going to ignore the elephant in the room, that we're in a very challenging time, and we recognize that. And so I would just be transparent and call the duck without going into details of the duck. So it's like, this is a tough time, and some of us are experiencing really hard spaces. So we really need to be mindful of that and transparent about that. So I see people. I know we're at our 30-minute time, so I know we could go on and on about it. But Angela, yeah.
I'm just going to follow up real quick, and that should be in your statement. Make sure you cover that we don't have to agree to be kind and respectful. That's the thing. We do not have to agree. And when you are facilitating, if discussions are getting a little bit out of control, that's where you can step in and say, listen, we disagree. We have disagreements on this particular topic, and we're getting a bit off track. let's go back and try to bring them back to the whatever the focus is. And that's your right as a facilitator to kind of cut off a discussion if it's not really facilitating what it is that you want them to really be focusing on in your curriculum. But encouraging students, they can talk, we can agree, we can disagree, but we don't have to be unkind. We don't. So
I think that's super important.
yeah.
And then if you do have to redirect, you know, so that a person doesn't feel slighted, because what can also happen is, oh, so now we're going to cut it off when I when I wanted to share my thing, is to say, you know, let's talk after, or, you know, so that you still can continue the space. Because I don't want you to feel, you know, that, oh, well, we're done with that, let's move. But to say, I hear you and I want to actually hear more. So when we're done, you know, feel free, we can talk more about it. If you still want to, we're going to get back to here just so that we can make sure we focus. So you're always, that's just a technique period to sandwich things when you've got to do something that could slight and maybe you don't recognize it will slight. Understand whenever we cut, we do probably, somebody might be, and just offer space. Right, we'll continue this in another space. Remind me, let me know. And if you don't know what to do, you know, contact me, you know, if it's more with what Angela is in line with her team, but don't feel like you have to figure this out by yourself.
Right.
Like this is what we're here for so that we can, you know, support you and help.
Definitely.
So.
Thank you, everyone. Make sure you have people to talk to and to connect with and to help you, period. So we're all here for you. Thank you for coming today. I hope to see you all at our next session.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Adios.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.